So as I've probably mentioned a few times already, I have this channel, The Modern Survivalist, and I also have a Spanish channel which is also about survival preparedness called Supervivencia Moderna. It has like over 70, almost 80,000 subscribers, and I get questions asked over there pretty often. Now, one of the questions I'm being asked a lot is, Fernando, what the hell is happening over in the United States? And I don't even know where to start. I have no clue what to say, because even I don't understand it. I turn on the TV, watch what's coming out of the mainstream media, the American mainstream media, and it is all crazy talk. The way in which the media is so biased against conservatives, anything that's not a downright communist, far left-leaning nutcase is impossible. It just, I don't understand it. I just don't understand how they get away with doing this. So on one hand, when you have peaceful people carrying guns, conservatives, protesting and making their voices heard, those are labeled as white supremacists and nutcases and terrorists. Now, on the other hand, when you have looters, rioters, criminals, thugs, as Trump correctly described them, burning down cities and committing crimes left and right, that is people demonstrating how upset they are. I mean, when did we start thinking like this? When was it okay to commit crimes because something else completely unrelated happened? I don't know. Have any of you ever started committing crimes because you were upset about some injustice? I don't think that's how normal people behave. And the way in which the mainstream media in the United States is trying to justify this is sick. It is disgusting. And yet it's being done en masse by so many people. The way in which I see white people on TV taking responsibility for the actions of a police officer that murdered a man that was handcuffed. How the hell are you responsible because you have the same skin color as the guy that committed a crime? Since when do people make that connection? I've spent the last couple of days seeing how people pretty much assume that they killed the guy themselves. I mean, you would think that Cosmo, or whatever the hell his name is, the guy from CNN, you'd think it was his knee on the guy's neck who killed him. Because the way in which people are assuming responsibility for things they have no relation with whatsoever, it is amazing. The amount of racism being spread throughout the media these last couple of days, the way in which they are dividing the society between white and black. You know, as a Hispanic myself, I say screw that. If I didn't commit a crime, why on earth would I assume responsibility of the actions of someone else? Of course, what the police officer did, it was downright murder, putting the knee on the guy's neck when he was already handcuffed, pinned to the ground, knee to the neck for like 7 minutes. The guy went unconscious. He kept the knee in the place until basically killed the guy. Of course, it's horribly wrong and he should be brought to justice for that. Now, how on earth does that justify you going out and looting? I mean, how is it that you can possibly think for a second that the guy looting a store and stealing DVDs or TVs or alcohol or whatever it is that a looter typical steals, how on earth do you see that as a political statement of you being upset about the injustice committed against the black community in the United States? It has no logic whatsoever. It's just stupid, and it is just not true. It's simply not true. You don't go and burn down a city. You don't commit arson. You don't start stealing stuff because you're upset about something bad that happened. You do that when you're a criminal. You do that when you are in fact a looter, when you're an arsonist, when you are, like Trump correctly described these people, when you are a thug. That's when you commit crimes. How on earth are all those, all of a sudden, political activists? And, you know, and I was just reading right now this is CNN, because you have to read this. You know, I read CNN all the time. But just like I read CNN all the time, I know their angle. And I was just reading this, and they have no shame. The way in which they are describing this, they really have no shame. Officials, white supremacists and anarchists fueling violence. White supremacists, is it really? Because I see Antifa doing that. Yes, it is true that in some of those protests that start a little bit like an actual peaceful protest, you see a few guys, some of them suspiciously dressed in the typical Antifa, and many of them, in fact, yes, white, dressed in the typical Antifa all-black outfit, skinny little bastards like screwing around and starting fights with the police. Yeah, you see that. But those are Antifa. Those are not white supremacists. You know, those are not the supposedly white supremacist, big fat guy with a beard and an AR-15. It's not that guy starting trouble. The supposedly white supremacist, which in fact it's not a white supremacist at all, because there were many Latinos there were many Hispanics, there were many black people, Asian people with guns. They were all gun owners. It was basically conservative gun owners peacefully protesting. How on earth do you call peaceful protesters? Yes, indeed, they have a gun because it is a right to have it, and they choose to have it. You may not agree with them or not, whatever it is, but they have a right to do that, and they're doing it peacefully. How can you possibly compare that with a looter and pretend that the looter is some kind of wise political activist because in his stealing of a flat screen TV or OLED, he's making his voice heard against the oppression of the white man? I mean, it is just so stupid. It just doesn't make any sense. And again, officials, white supremacists, no, you don't see that. And anarchists fueling violence. Anarchists, they choose not to say Antifa. They choose not to say Antifa. Why? Because Trump correctly said, yes, it is Antifa doing this. It is these far left radical nutcases looking to start trouble. There's even a few little very interesting videos there on YouTube. There's some Antifa guys is starting to fight the police, and a few black guys telling him, hey, cut this out, this is not about you, don't do this, we're not looking to fight the police. And they are starting that. And correctly stated by Trump, these are terrorist groups. What is a terrorist? A terrorist is a person, a group that uses violence so as to achieve political objectives. It's basically that. That's a terrorist. A terrorist is a politician that uses violence to achieve what through the democratic process he cannot possibly achieve. Those guys are in fact terrorists. They're using violence for a political goal, which is to disrupt the democratic process of the United States. And they are correctly labeled as terrorists. Now, the mainstream media chooses to ignore that and just blames conservatives. It is, guys, these are very interesting times, unfortunately, and you know, some people are taking this attitude of, yeah, it's no big deal, it's only happening in major cities. Yes, but all of a sudden it's been happening in over 100 cities, so it's not only major cities, it's major and medium-sized cities, and basically this is your country, folks. This is what's happening, and you turn on the TV and you don't recognize the place. This is me, take it as, from who it's coming from, some outsider watching it, and many times, I'll tell you this, many times, being from the outside, it gives you an objective perspective of what's going on. And the way in which these stooges are fueling the racism and the disgusting attitude of just labeling everyone that happens to be white as a racist because a white cop murdered a guy. I mean, would it have been less wrong if the guy he killed with his knee to the neck was white? Would that have been okay because he was just white? No, but it just matters if you're black. If you're black, you burn the country down. If he's white, you just let justice run its course. It is crazy. It's something I have addressed in the channel before. I have talked about how this, even from last year, you've seen these radical left-wing groups working. You've seen the racial tensions growing over some years now. It's been going on, and if you combine all of this, if you combine coronavirus, the economy in such a bad shape everywhere in the world, but definitely a lot of unemployment. They're trying to keep the stock market afloat, but I mean, man, that's just, you know it as well as I do. It's just an attempt to inflate the stock market so as to avoid a crash, but the economy is all over the world is in pretty bad shape in general. If you combine all of that with this as well, it's going to be some pretty tough times ahead. So as always, watch the channel. My channel is packed full of videos covering all sorts of topics over the years. Use the search function. Of course, there's my books, which I've always recommended through my videos, especially my last one, Street Survival Skills, which addresses specifically the kind of thing you're seeing right now. I talk about that you're not going to be finding many books, you're not going to be finding many survival books that address how you determine masses of crowds. You don't find many books like this where I talk about how many ratio of police per mass of people protesting should you be watching for and be concerned of if those numbers are way too low. That's the kind of thing that I discuss here, so it's very relevant to the times you're seeing right now. And of course, the Modern Survival Manual, my first book, still extremely relevant with the economy the way it is, and it's likely to be getting a lot worse in the future. Folks, see you on the next video. Have an awesome day.